Um, my name is Miss Andrea, and I'm not using my usual computer, so setup might take a second. Um, we have a little bit of lag. Just for a little feedback on who I am, I have I started homeschooling my own children in the year 2003. At that point, I homeschooled them for 10 years, and then my youngest child, I graduated in 2013. Both children went to college with lots of scholarships, and ever since 2013, I've been helping other people get their children into college with scholarships who have homeschooled. The last 1 or 2 years, I have not only been helping homeschoolers with that, that's better. I have been helping public school families also get kids into college with scholarships, because sometimes the public school guidance counselors don't help everyone. They pick that top percent of the class and they hone in on them, and the rest of the kids are pretty much on their own, and that's unfair. And that's unfair. So what I'm going to share with you today is the homeschool portfolio and or versus the homeschool transcript. Um, they're both documents that homeschoolers use to get into college, and they both represent your high school career from 8th or ninth grade up until graduation. Um, I have started doing portfolios for public and private school students, in addition to doing them for homeschool students. And I'm looking for my pen so I can write a note to hit that at the end. Um, but so this is mostly going to be about homeschool students today, but some of it does apply to public and private school students, because I use a lot of these same um, tactics and some of these documents to help a public or private school student shine and get into college. If you're homeschooling, if you're thinking about homeschooling, if you want to get up to 10th grade and the kid doesn't want to do it anymore and you want to homeschool the last 2 years, these are the people who this is important to. So, homeschool versus a homeschool accredited transcript versus a homeschool portfolio. I graduated two of my own children personally, and I took each of these approaches. So let's start with kid number one, who we did the homeschool portfolio for. Um, we started writing the portfolio in 8th grade because it's easier if you write it each year than if you try to write the whole 4 years in a row. That's just going to be so much easier. But let's just start with where we started. Basically, your portfolio includes 1 to 3 pages for every credit that you award to the student. Some classes, 1 page works fine for. Some classes, you have to have at least 3 pages. There are some classes where you might have 4 or 5 pages, but that doesn't make it harder. So I have my handy dandy notebook because this is a lot of information. So the first page for any class, let's just say a computer design class, that first page is going to say, this is what grade the student is in, this is the class he is taking, this is study at home, or this is study in a homeschool co-op or homeschool classroom, whatever. So what the class is, what grade, and how the course is taken, because what people don't realize is homeschoolers take classes just like everybody else. We just get to pick and choose where we're taking them and who we're taking them with. So that first page is gonna summarize the class, and in a lot of cases with these one-page summaries of the class, it's usually a class outside of the house. So all you really have to do is go to the instructor and say, hey, I'm writing my child's homeschool portfolio, or I'm preparing my child's homeschool portfolio, and I just need you to write a 1-paragraph assessment of my child and then attach their grade to that. So basically, they will give you a paragraph, usually praising your child and telling you what grade they would award to your child, or whether, it's a pass fail type of situation. So that usually works well for classes like computer design, chorus, online classes like pre-calc. My son took pre-calc online. And for some reason, when you have an actual accredited teacher attached, the colleges are happy with the teacher going, thumbs up. A film editing class, the exception to that is photography. We had that 1 page, but then we added like 4 or 5 pages of photographs that he has taken. So those are the easiest classes to prepare for the homeschool portfolio. The light is so wonky, and I'm so sorry, but my usual laptop died, and here we are. So other cases, you need 2-page summaries for some classes. In classes, those classes would be non-lab sciences, so science classes that didn't require a lab, or a history or social studies class, or a health class, or economics, or personal finance. So what you need to do for those 2-page summaries of the class is, student's name, what grade they're in, the name and author of the text, because these are usually classes that they're learning at home with you. So you need the name of the textbook, the author of the textbook, the publisher of the textbook, if it's an accredited publisher. And then you're going to need the table of contents from that textbook. We usually just open the textbook to the table of contents page, take a screenshot of it or photocopy it, and then, or take a picture, and then size it to fit on that page. Then you need a list of the quizzes they took, and just like quiz 1, topic, grade, quiz 2, topic, grade. And then you need a final exam grade, or a final exam paper. If they wrote a paper, you attach that to their, and so that's basically what you need. And that tends to take about 2 pages. We did these 2-page summaries for sciences that didn't involve labs, history and social studies classes, health classes, economics classes, personal finance classes. Some classes just, aren't going to make or break a portfolio. And so you just don't need to get carried away with those classes. You just need those items in the portfolio, what textbook, what topics, how they quizzed in them, what their final exam was, or they can just write a paper that demonstrates their knowledge of that course. Okay. And then, so now we get into the meat of the portfolio. There are going to be maybe half of the students' classes where 3 to 4 pages are going to be required for the portfolio. You're going to see this in math, sciences that have labs, language arts, and a lot of the electives. FYI, my eyes are really wonky today, and I'm a little anxious because this is a lot of material, and I took my COVID shot yesterday, shot number 2, so I kind of feel miserable. But we're going to do this anyway. So, math. Math is kind of the most important course for you to demonstrate when doing a homeschool portfolio. So this is kind of what it's going to look like. And FYI, I'm going to go ahead and write a blog post with all the images of all these things in them. And eventually, hopefully this week, link to that blog post in the description of this video. So math. Once again, you need to say what textbook you used, title of the text, author of the textbook, publisher. If you used an interactive online math program, you provide a screenshot of the start page for that curriculum and a link so that the school can go and look at it if they please. Okay, so that's the first thing you need. Then you need your table of contents. The math portfolio page has to detail every math function covered during the year. And then you need your list of quizzes and tests and the scores that they received on each of those quizzes and tests. Now, homeschoolers, a lot of us teach to mastery, meaning that they have to get darn near 100% in a topic before they move to the next topic. And that's the best way to teach math because math builds upon itself. So you have to master the lower function to do well in the next function. However, they don't have to get 100%. And you don't want a list of quizzes to say 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, and the final exam to say 100, because no one's going to believe you. Because here's the deal. If they took the test 3 times to get to that 100, you have to be a little bit transparent in that. So maybe the first time they took it, if they got a 100, that's a 100. The second time they took it, if they got a 100, that's a 95. The third time they took it, if they finally got that 100, it's a 90. If they took it 8 times to get to a 100, you kind of have to give them an 80%. Okay, and I'll tell you why in a little while. So the quizzes and tests and the results, and then a copy of the final exam, the completed final exam. The final exam can be a true grade. I don't suggest giving it to them more than twice. They should have absorbed and retained, especially if you're teaching to mastery. So very important. Not every school is going to ask for this, but enough schools are going to ask for this that you might as well go ahead and do it. You will need to keep track of how many hours your students spent on the course, which means every time your child sat down to do math, in their notebook or in their journal, or if it's an interactive online program, they actually keep track of time spent in the program. And you're going to have to add those up at the end of the year, because basically to obtain a credit, a full course credit, you need 100 to 150, or even in some maths, 180 hours of time spent studying that course to master it. It's just what it is. They've done the math. They know what it takes. So the top of the page would say student's name, grade, course, links to the course or textbook, table of contents. But in the corner, in the upper right-hand corner of the page, you just want a little notation that says 172 hours. Don't just make it up. Actually calculate it. Actually be honest about it, because they're going to know if you're not. It's going to show up, and I'll tell you why in a little while. Alternatively, you cannot do that at all. You can have your child test through a course to show proficiency. lips aren't working. You can have your child test through a course to show their proficiency in that course. There used to be 3 tests. I found out this morning that one of those tests is going away. It used to be the SAT subject tests, which the first test showed proficiency in Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, and the second test showed proficiency in trig and pre-calculus. That test is no longer available to Americans. If you are international, you can still get these tests. But what's left for us, people in the US, to take would be AP exams and CLEP exams. There are 2, I think, CLEP exams you can take. And once again, one of them shows proficiency in like Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry. And the other one does the upper maths. Or the most popular and the most widely desired testing by the colleges would be the AP exam. There's not an AP math exam for every course. Once again, we're bunching. There's basically a higher level calculus and a lower level calculus AP exam. But if your child can do well in a calculus AP exam, then it is assumed that they have mastered algebra and geometry and trig. So I highly recommend you take the first approach and you prepare these materials all the way through their math journey, detailing what they took, where they took, their quiz grades, and their final exams. And if you get to pre-calculus and calculus, then you go ahead and have them take the AP. And then you don't need all those pages. But if for some reason they don't hit that mark, and not everyone who aims for calculus hits the calculus mark, then you still have all this information compiled. Okay? Okay. Science in the homeschooler portfolio. Same. You need the textbook. You need, of course, the child's name, their grade, the textbook, the publisher, the distributor, the table of contents, the test scores for each chapter. And then if it is a lab science, you need lab pages for, 2 to 3 labs. How do you get those? Homeschool labs is really difficult to do. For my second child, for chemistry, we did something called kitchen chemistry, which is an MIT online course. And she did the labs and she took pictures and she took notes. And that's how we demonstrated labs for that. For biology, we went to the local parks and recreation. And our county has public labs, like fun weekend labs that they do. And so we were able to go and get labs done there. You just have to check with homeschoolers in your community to see what is available in labs. Do not neglect labs. There are museums all over. I'm in the greater Atlanta area, and there are just museums all over that have weekend activities for kids, and they include labs. Some actually have a lab program set up for the public schools where the kids actually take field trips over there and do labs with actual scientists. You can call them and get your homeschoolers in on that program. Do not neglect the labs. Basically, with science, you're going to have a 1 or 2 page summary, and then you're going to have your labs. Not all sciences need labs. Physical science doesn't have to have labs, but it can. Botany doesn't have to have labs, but you need a chemistry lab and you need a biology lab. Don't try to do a portfolio without it. Your child's going to lose a lot of points by not having that. So please don't do it. Language arts takes up some pages. You're going to need to burn some pages when you're doing the language arts part of your child's homeschool portfolio. Okay. Um, so it's really interesting. Basically, like ninth grade, you're going to do English. The lips, they're not cooperative today. I really have a headache from getting that second COVID test. For ninth grade math, you're going to do grammar with some literature. Usually in ninth grade, I'm doing American history or I'm doing world geography. And I just pick literature that goes along with what we're doing in history. And I've made several videos about combining language arts and history, and that's just how I roll. But any set of language arts, it could be a world history, it could be world history related, it could be language arts related, or it could just be a genre that your child really loves. It could be they could decide to read all of Mark Twain, or all of maybe 2 or 3 authors from the same genre, same time period. But ninth grade, you really are free to choose whatever literature you want. For ninth grade, there are so many online language arts and grammar programs available that you can use. And so, I'm sorry, I need to check and see if this is plugged in. It is. There are so many grammar and language arts programs you can use. Honestly, we just use the Khan Academy language arts program. They seem to have accepted that always to show grammar. And then also ninth grade, you need to show that your child can write the different types of essays, which include like the expository essay, the convincing essay. And my headache is not allowing me to go in further on what the types of essays are. But basically, they need to do the grammar and they need to do the 4 types of essays, and then they need to read. And so what you're going to have on that language arts page is the summary of the topics that you covered. If you test it through, like, say, Khan Academy, you can say Khan Academy, grammar. And now Khan Academy has added language arts for each grade. It's not quite done yet. It'll be done in the fall. But they still have just grammar. And that's what I like for ninth graders. And then you can screenshot their progress in that grammar. There's actually like a back office report on Khan Academy that shows what they did in grammar. You also need to have a book list, everything they read, whether it was academic or for fun. Including manga, because the fact that they could read that backwards and pick up on the culture is important. You could even do a unit on manga. And then you're going to want writing samples for those types of essays. Good morning, Simple Life, Grateful Wife. You're going to need to show that they've written each type of standard essay. And you're going to need to grade those themselves. In the past, homeschoolers could just print an essay they thought was good and put it in the portfolio and send it. Now they always get a letter back that says, can you show us the graded version of this essay? And then can you tell me your philosophy for grading the essay? And that's hard because it's objective or subjective. So what I do is I go online to a writing tool, and there are many writing tools that help teachers grade essays, whether it just be straight grammar, punctuation, style, sophistication. And what I do is I would run their essay through 2 different programs and say their Flesh reading score is 9.2. So like second year, ninth grade, and their blah, blah, blah reading score is blah, blah, blah. and say, you know, I use these, the tools I use to assess their writing. And that way it makes it less a mommy grade and more as a standardized, this is how the world would see my child's writing kind of grade. Okay, so that's really important when you get to the language arts portion of the homeschool portfolio. And that, so I spoke about ninth grade. The same goes for 10th grade, the seventh, 10th grade. We've done grammar now. So now we're just working on like essays. Like they need to be writing book reports. They need to be writing analysis reports of what they read. They need to be doing some creative writing. And then they need to be reading. Once again, pick a genre. I always match my child's reading genre up to something else they're studying, whether it be I don't know, if we're doing early classic times, they might be getting Shakespeare. If we're doing American history, we might start out the year with classical American authors. I just try to keep the authors of the time period in step with the history because it doubles down the information for the children instead of, giving them more things to look at. But just pick a genre for the year, have them read, have them write. So you're going to need a summary of, I would say something like, this year we worked on these types of essays, book reports, literary analyses, and this is the growth that we saw. The child writes, longer in depth, they understand this and that, and then you give an example of the writing that is pre-graded. Okay, and there should be an essay from perhaps early in the year when they weren't quite so sophisticated, an essay from the middle of the year that started showing promise, and then an essay from the end of the year that, you were really happy with. You can have that child spend the entire last 2 months of the school year as a homeschooler working on that essay and perfecting it. Okay. And then that's the essay that, that's going to be attached to, 10th grade language arts. 11th grade language arts, same thing. But the writing is going to get more in depth. They're going to do not just a literary analysis, but they're going to do a whole term paper where they're talking about a topic and then they tie in different things that they've read, different novels that they read that year, to back up what they have written. I think the year my son decided to do dystopian literature, 1984, Hunger Games, etc. He talked about society and government and how these books were cautionary tales and warnings. So that sort of thing. And this is where they need to have the bibliographies done and all of that. They need to show that they are going to be in the 11th grade. They need to show that they're going to be able to write an essay when they get into that first language arts class in college. And I'll tell you why we're doing that in 11th grade and not 12th grade. First of all, they need a year to cement those skills and for that to become natural. Second of all, when we get to 12th grade language arts, we are working on our personal statements. We are getting ready for college. So at the end of that year, there will be one big, term paper done, full bibliography and all that yummy stuff. That first half of the year, they are writing their personal statement. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is where I see myself in the future. And it's going to take that whole semester. When they start sending out those college applications as early as Thanksgiving and no later than Christmas, They're going to spend that first semester writing about themselves, thinking about themselves, really thinking about their motivations and what fuels them and all of that. And they're going to be working on that personal essay. The second semester, we can go back to those essays that are going to be a representation of what we're going to be able to write in college. Okay. And so that's why the language arts part of the homeschool portfolio is meaty, because this is where your child shines. This is where the personality shines. This is where their ability to adapt and integrate new information into what they can do shows up, because you're showing writing from 3 points in the year, and we're seeing that growth. And they're going, oh, teachable. That's what the schools are doing. So for about the 24 to 30 classes that a homeschooler is going to take, whether it be at home one-on-one with you, whether it be kind of a self-study, I want to investigate this topic alone, mom, leave me alone, and I'll write your paper when I'm done, whether it be a co-op class, whether it be an online class funded by the public school. From those 24 to 30, and actually my daughter did 36 because there was a lot of arts involved, they're going to be 70 to 100, maybe 120 pages in the homeschool portfolio. So don't wait until October of 12th grade to start putting together the portfolio. Start December of 8th grade if they're taking classes in 8th grade that are high school classes like algebra and science. If they start high school classes in 9th grade, then start in December of 9th grade. Over your break time, you need to sit down and go through every class your child took and start compiling that information and writing the summary, so that at the end of that year, now you can just write the final summary and now start getting information ready for what's going on the next year. Guys, don't wait. People pay me a lot of money to fix this mistake that they've made. A lot. And what ends up happening is they'll bring me a big Rubbermaid tub of papers. I'm lost. I can't do it. You do it. And they run away. And I literally pull all the papers out and stack them according to grade and stack them according to subject matter and look through them and assess, okay, 8th grade, 9th grade, math, 10th grade math, whatever, language arts, okay, this is grammar here, this is essays here, this is literary analysis here. And then I stack it all up and I have my little stacks. And then I say, which stacks are missing? And I say, okay, they didn't really do the 11th grade term paper. They really kind of skimmed over biology. And then I go back to them and I say, okay, this is what's missing. This is what you need to get me to prove these things. Here's the thing. I do that over a weekend. I don't sleep because this is how long it takes. And they pay me a lot of money. I'd rather sleep and not take your money for something you can do yourself. I'd rather, if I'm going to help you, I'd rather be giving you the advice you need on how to make your child best shine. The paperwork is the paperwork. I mean, I'll do it if I need to, but it's not hard. So here's the thing. Let's talk about grading our kids for a minute. I really am. I'm glad I'm on screen and not in person, because I feel like garbage from taking that second COVID shot yesterday. It's starting to really weigh on me. And why did I have sneezing fits all day yesterday? I have no idea. So let's talk about grades, guys. As homeschoolers, there's a tendency to want to grade our children high. And that's fine if they've done the work. But you need to, first of all, let your children see that there are consequences to taking shortcuts and not doing the work. But if they have done the work, then you want to grade them appropriately. Like I said about, I don't know, 20 or so minutes ago, a lot of us teach to mastery, especially in math, which means they have to master, they have to perfect a math function before moving on to the next math function. And so in theory, the math quizzes would say 100, 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. But that's not really true because they might spend 2, 3, 4, 5 times as long on that function than they do other functions. So I'm not going to name a topic right now. Just say, they studied a function for the 2 weeks that it was expected that they should learn the function. And they quizzed and they did poorly. They got a 70. You give them another week, they got an 80. You give them another week, they got a 90. You give them another week, and now they've mastered it. You don't want to just give them that 100. If it took them 3 extra weeks, I would lower the grade 5 points every time. So they would have an 80 for that. Or you can average the score of the 4 tests and say, this is the grade that they got for this. It's just important to be transparent and to not lie when grading your homeschooler, because you're going to fool yourself, because those hundreds are going to look really good and you're going to think your child's invincible when there's actually areas where your child needs more work. And number 2, you're going to look like a liar when the SAT scores come out. Grading math the way I do, by lowering the grade the longer it takes to master a function, usually ends us coming out right at where the SAT scores fall. So I know it works. And I'm going to have to do a whole video on that to explain more carefully how I grade math and homeschooling. But when I'm done with the year, let's take algebra, for instance. We've graded algebra, and 70% of the functions the child got correct the first time. They got 100% the first time. And then 10% of the functions, they got an 80 in because it took them several weeks longer to master that. And then another group, they got a 90 in because it took them several weeks to master that. And some, they just never mastered. Average all that in, and maybe I have like an 85 to an 87. Guys, it's okay to get a B in math. And so what happens is, over the course of 3 years, their math grade averages out to not be 100. It averages out to be, and if they're 100 student, they're 100 student. Perfect, because that's going to show up in the SAT too. It averages out to be maybe like 85. All their math scores combined comes out to be at 85. They've got a 3.5 in math. When they take that SAT, they're probably going to score around 600 in math. Your math ability shows up clear as day in the SAT and ACT. Now, you need to go back and watch the video I made on the SAT and ACT, because I tell you how many times you have to take it to get that best score. But that best score on the SAT is going to directly correlate back to the grade you gave them in math. And if it doesn't, the school's going to think that the whole portfolio is a lie. And you have to trust me on this, because I've seen it happen. I've seen parents insist and insist and insist and override what I said and put down A's because we taught to mastery. So we're going to put down A's for 3.5 years of math. And I'm going to write, we teach to mastery, and that's going to be good enough. and then they get a 520 on the SAT, on the math portion of the SAT. And the school's like, you're a liar, and I'm not looking at this portfolio any further. And they're like, why didn't these schools accept me? I'm like, because I told you that their grades don't reflect their testing. And yeah, I know we have this whole thing where we talk about, well, my child is an anxious test taker, and so their test scores aren't going to be as good as their class scores. I'm sorry. Unless you have an outside teacher or tutor grading your kid, if you are mom grading your kid's math and their standardized test scores don't match up, the school's going to pop attitude, right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just going to happen. Okay? Please listen to me on this. Please. So, all that said, with first child number 1, this is what I did. I did 120 pages. I went to Kinko's, which is now, I think, UPS store. I printed out 10 copies. I put them in a big manila envelope. We started the applications online. We said homeschool portfolio coming, and we mailed out the homeschool portfolios. And he got accepted into every college. One school SCAD, we did not have those numbers, how much time it took for each math class in there. And they said, we need to know how much time he spent on each of these classes. And they listed the classes. So I had to go back in. Fortunately, we had used computer programs for math classes, so it wasn't hard to compile and guesstimate and et cetera, and get them those raw numbers that they wanted. So child number 1, we did the homeschool portfolio. Child number 2, we did an accredited homeschool transcript. And that means that I paid someone $400, $100 for each year, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, to review her work and to write her a transcript and to put their own accreditation stamp on it. It was still all the same work. I still had to spend those 4 years going through the exercise of compiling and keeping track of all her work. So the transcript, the accredited transcript, was not in lieu of the work that was done. It was in addition to the work that was done. So I went through my child's entire high school career, and I think I called the accreditation person mid-year 11th grade when I decided that I wanted to go ahead and get accreditation. But everything I had done until that point looked just like the portfolio. So I went ahead and mailed her that whole portfolio to date, right? And then as we completed each class, in the same way that I did every class that I mentioned, every class earlier, you know, summaries, quizzes, all that good stuff, I still mailed that accreditation person all that stuff. And sometimes she asked questions and sometimes she didn't. So anyway, I still wrote the homeschool portfolio. The accreditation is on top of it. And she reviewed everything we did. She raised some of the grades I had given my child because I did err on the side of being too harsh. Number 1, to raise my child's game, you know, because some kids do bare minimum. And number 2, because when an accreditation outside person is looking at the grades, the schools are more happy to accept the higher grades than the grade that came from the mom. She said I was too harsh, which in some of the grading, which is better than being too soft. Guys, that will get your homeschool portfolio rejected every time. Okay. FYI, if anyone has a question on anything I'm talking about, please go ahead and leave it in the comments. I'm going to try not to look at the comments until I'm almost done, because I will lose track of what I'm thinking, especially since I don't feel good from taking that second shot yesterday. And then I will address those questions then. So she also, looking at what I had done, changed some things. For instance, what I called Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, because I really only made my child study Spanish for like 15 minutes a day. And I did it over 4 years. So I called ninth grade, I was like, this is Spanish 1A. And 10th grade, I was like, this is Spanish 1B. And 11th grade, I was like, this is Spanish 2A. And then 12th grade, this is Spanish 2B. That's how I approached Spanish. So it didn't take up a lot of her time. She looked back and she goes, that's cute. But the coursework she has covered tells me Spanish 1, 2, and 3. Stop being so mean, Mom. And she took out, the Spanish 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, and wrote in Spanish 1, 2, and 3, and graded her appropriately that way. So that's one thing that the accreditation agency did that I didn't feel like, as a homeschool mom, that I could or should do. They also handled, what is that word? All college reporting. I didn't have to go to Kinko's, print everything, put it in manila envelopes, and write in the applications, transcripts are coming. That school literally just sent the same transcript to the colleges that any public school would have sent it to the colleges. It was easy peasy, and it made the college application, that month, those months in the fall of senior year, they made those easier because there was less legwork for me to do. And then at the end of first semester, 12th grade, I sent her the child's grades, and then she sent the college child's grades. And then when the child graduated, I sent her the child's final grades, and then she sent the college the child's final grades. You can do that with or without an accreditation agency in the middle. It's just that the accreditation agency is so cookie cutter and so on specific forms and stuff, and they just glance at it and go, good, done, great. And so the school has to think less. Here's the thing, and it's got a little messy. It turns out that me having someone else accredit my child's homeschool portfolio was completely unnecessary. Besides the fact that accreditation agency ended up in 2 scandals, which I feel like taints my child's accredited diploma. The first scandal was that local news sent a producer in to say that they were a senior and they were failing a class, and could they test the class and send the grades back to the school, because that's a thing. If you're in public school, you can go to an accredited agency and retake a class with them, and then the school will accept their credit. So they got busted for that, which wasn't good. The second thing was at the graduation that year, after they had sent my daughter's diploma, my daughter had graduated. We were good. We were great. We were fine. We had no problems. My daughter had never actually taken any classes with them. What happened at that point is there was a racial scandal where the woman who was in charge of the school stood on the podium and said some really horrible things, because it was a white lady who ran the school, and she did a good job. But a lot of Black families who kind of got pushed out of the public school system, and I'll do a whole video on school pushouts, I promise. Got pushed out of the public school system, went to her, and she was like, I help you people, and your children don't wear their pants right. Granted, this is 2013 and nobody knew where their waist was. Everybody's waist were for some reason halfway to thigh. Drives me crazy too. But she stood up on that podium and trashed the families for coming in late. Look, we have our own time clock, whatever. She trashed them for the way their kids dress. And then she lauded herself on how much she'd done for the Black community. and she ticked everyone off, and someone recorded it and it ended up on the news, and etc. So I feel like my child's accredited diploma, even though it made our lives easy on the college entry journey, I feel like my daughter's actual diploma has someone's name on it that I think is an awful person. So that upsets me. However, the other reason that us doing all that work to compile my daughter's whole high school career and then send it to an accreditation agency for oversight was completely unnecessary is that my daughter was accepted into college literally based on her having a near perfect verbal SAT score. They probably didn't even look at anything. They probably didn't look at the transcript. They didn't look at the portfolio. They were like, GPA, check, SAT, check, check, you're in. And then her full scholarship was based on theater talent. She went to competition day at her college. After they accept you, if you're going into a major that is talent based, then they have a competition day and they audition you, and her talent is what got her her full scholarship. All they needed to know was, did she hit this minimal SAT, and she was well above it, and they saw her talent and liked it. So my daughter went to college for free based on none of the things that I did or none of the money that I paid to get her an accredited diploma and transcript. My bad. So let's talk about pros and cons of homeschool portfolios and the accredited transcript. So the portfolio, the pros would be they're unique, and they remove the ability for the colleges to do a cookie cutter assessment on your child. They have to, they can't just, put it through a computer program. Someone actually has to review it. And a lot of colleges, and especially homeschool friendly colleges, have a department that handles homeschool applicants separately. And they are evaluated based on their own unique merits. And so by doing the homeschool portfolio, your child is evaluated on their own unique merits instead of through some kind of computer algorithm. And I think that's valuable. Okay. It shows off their talents better because you've got their writing in there. They're seeing their writing style. You never see that in an unaccredited transcript. They've got art portfolios in there. They've got talent portfolios in there. They've got a list of performances. They've got things that other kids just aren't going to have, except for that little addendum at the end of the application that says other awards and talents. And it's, that big. Who looks at that? So you've got pages and pages and pages of things that show off your child better. Make sure there's a table of contents in the front of their portfolio, because no one's going to flip through all the pages, but they will look through the table of contents and go, ooh, and then flip through to that page. Homeschool portfolios are widely accepted by most colleges. Don't let anyone tell you they are not. We are now to the point where we are about 25 to 30 years into modern homeschooling, and colleges have caught on. And a lot of colleges seek out homeschoolers and have special scholarships set aside for homeschoolers. So don't think that your homeschool portfolio is not good enough for colleges. I thought that the reason I freaked out, because I did, it was a moment of panic, and got a homeschool portfolio accredited for my daughter, was because I had two children. She would have been my second child in college. And I was concerned that she would be precluded from certain scholarships because she did not have a transcript. And she was, but because her talents showed so well, she got a better scholarship. She got a better scholarship. So these are things we have to consider. The portfolio also allows for non-traditional educational approaches. Now, I've given you all these details. And this video is 55 minutes in. Most of the details are in the first 20 minutes. So you might want to go back and watch those first 20 minutes. But every single class doesn't have to be that way. You can have 5 to 10% of their classes done completely non-traditionally. One of my daughter's history was, in her portfolio, I had one page that just said, what is the word called? I have such a headache. Independent study. You know, she independent studied XYZ, WXY, particularly concentrating on ABC. And then I attached the magnificent paper that she wrote based on that. So if they have interest to be an autodidact, which means they know what they want to study and they study it on their own, you can do that for a handful of their high school courses and put that in a portfolio. And that shows initiative, and that shows that they don't have to be handheld. So those are the pros of writing the homeschool portfolio. The cons of writing the homeschool portfolio yourself is you got to be organized. Organization is required. You need to be organized, and you need to be well organized, okay? And this can be intimidating. Writing your child's homeschool portfolio can be terribly intimidating. And I'm going to keep trying to teach people to do it so that people aren't so intimidated in writing the homeschool portfolio, because it's just kind of formula. I really want to create a workbook with worksheets in it so people know exactly what to fill out and what to put in. Some colleges will want their information sent to them in a particular format. So while homeschool portfolios are widely accepted by most colleges, there will still be colleges that says, oh yeah, that's great, and they'll push it aside, and then they'll send you a form and say, fill this out. And that's because they're trying to make it as cookie cutter, apples to apples as possible with other schools. Take note of that, continue the application or not. Schools that do that tend to be less homeschool friendly. And so when they know your child is homeschooled, they're going to set up more barriers to that child. And that's often a signal to me that maybe that's not the school we need to be looking at right now. But if you want Ivy League and they want that format, just do it. And then you have the portfolio also. And if they ask another question, you can say, see portfolio page, blah, blah, you know, if they have more questions later. Okay, so now let's look at the pros and cons of getting your child an accredited transcript done, okay? The first pro is that it's just easier for colleges. Now they can take this homeschool child and put them in the batch with all the public school children and run it through their computer algorithm and make their lives easy, okay? So, and that's the only pro I have for doing the homeschool accredited transcript. I mean, for schools that push back on homeschool students, you now have this, and they're not going to push back. As for the cons, your child ceases to be unique, and they cease to stand out when you pay for an accredited transcript. FYI, you're still doing all the work. You're still doing all the work, and you're still doing all the compiling that you would do if you were going to write a portfolio. Once again, it's not in lieu of, it's in addition to. And you're spending extra dough. In my case, it was $400. So we've come to the end of the first hour, and I usually have questions at this point from people, but I've gone through all the information. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that I have different people on board now than were on board then. If anyone has a question, please go ahead and ask it. Okay. So what this video was about was, should I create a homeschool portfolio for my child's homeschool, or should I pay, because you have to pay for these, an accredited diploma through an accreditation agency? Accreditation agencies are homeschool schools or homeschool individuals who have gotten the licensing to look at your children's work and assign it accreditation in the same way that a public school would assign that accreditation. Okay. So for me personally, my story is my first child we did the portfolio with, and my second child we did the accredited diploma with. For both children, it was literally the same process. The same exact process went into writing one child's homeschool portfolio and preparing the information to send to the accreditation agency to write the second child's accredited transcript and diploma. So it wasn't less work on my part. Once again, for kid one, for every class, for the 24 to 30 and maybe even 36 classes, because if your child has a lot of half credits, or if your child has a lot of extracurriculars, if your child is talented, they're going to do more classes. For each of those 24 to 30, 36 classes, you're going to write a 1 to generally 3-page summary. For classes where they've written essays, you're going to also add in those best essays, 1 or 2. A simple 1-page summary works great when your child takes an outside class with a homeschool co-op, or maybe they intern with an individual, or they take an online class, and you just go to whoever that they learned with and you say, hey, write a quick assessment for my child. And then you add the pertinent information at the top, grade, what was this class about, et cetera, and then you add that person's assessment. Done and done. Okay. Then you have classes that you only get a 2-page summary for, and they're like simple non-lab sciences, your histories and social studies, your health, your economics, because the schools just aren't gonna look too hard at some classes. And so let's not just cram a lot of information into everything, because then they won't read anything. Basically, name and author of textbook, table of contents, list of sets and quizzes and the results, final grade, maybe approach you took to the class. Done and done. And then portfolios for each class get more in depth and more stringent when you do certain classes, like math, for example. We're an hour in at this point. We have another half hour to go, and I took the COVID shot yesterday, the second one, and I feel like garbage. So bear with me. Math is very important to keep track of and compile your students' math journey carefully, and to be uber, super duper, very extremely honest about that math journey. As homeschoolers, we tend to teach to mastery, and mastery means that they need to get 100 in a math function before moving on to the math function. But if it took them 3 attempts to get that mastery, you can't give them 100. You have to give them like 85. You have to take that all into account because that's going to show up later when they take their standardized tests. There's a reason that we still do SATs and ACTs. It's because they're really good indicators on how much math your child has retained. And so if your kid's math scores are 100, 100, 100, all in your portfolio, everything's a 100, and your child gets a 520 on the math SAT, they're going to throw the whole portfolio in the garbage. It's better to have a B math student in a portfolio that's highly considered than a portfolio that doesn't get looked at all. It's okay to have B's in 1 or 2 classes. It's all right, y'all. So math is just going to take more pages. Textbook, table of contents, or if it's an online interactive website, you want to screenshot the start page of the website and add the link. You want to itemize every function that they covered, give quiz and test exams, and then you're going to want to add a copy of their completed final exam. It is okay to allow them to take the final exam twice to maximize their score. They do it in public school, so you can do it too. Science, we're going to have our textbook, our table of contents, grade level, all of that. For biology and chemistry and any other lab science, they have to have at least 2. You have to include the lab work. There are workbooks, there are instructions online on how to do a lab with a lab sheet, but the easiest way for a homeschooler to do a lab sheet is to go into the community and find someone who's doing labs. There are parents who are scientists who love to do labs with kids. The local parks and recreations on weekends have these little lab workshops. The local science museums, my lips are so tired. The local science museums also have lab workshops. So find the lab workshops, do the lab workshops. It doesn't, the labs, you can do the entire biology during the year and then that summer go and find a lab workshop. It doesn't have to be do page 1 to 80, do a lab. Do you know what I mean? You just have to have those labs in the portfolio. Language arts, I love language arts. I love writing the summaries for language arts. I love showing how a child's writing has grown through language arts, but basically, what textbook are you using? What's table of contents? What functions are you working on? And that's usually 9th grade because they're normally just working on grammar. And then what did they read this year? What genre? Choose a genre and have them work on that genre. Do a book list of everything they read, whether it fits into that genre or not, and then have them write the 4 different types of essays and put one of each of those in the portfolio for the 9th grade year. 10th grade year, now we're doing book reports, not little short ones, but long ones, and literary analyses. And so you want one from early in the year, one from middle in the year, one from end of the year, so we can show their growth through that year. And once again, you've got a genre of work that they're studying. I like Shakespeare in the 10th grade myself. I like classical and antiquity and things like that. But that's completely up to you and the child and what they have a heart for, and add the book list. 11th grade, we're going to be writing full, I'm sorry, my head hurts. We're going to be writing full term papers with bibliography and all of that lovely stuff. They'll start off small and they'll get longer and longer throughout the year till they'll spend most of the final semester writing something that could probably rival what kids in college are doing. Okay, you want that. Because when they get to 12th grade, first of all, you need to already have an amazing essay ready for when they start applying for colleges in early fall of 12th grade. And also that first semester of 12th grade, you want to be spending 100% of your effort on writing that personal statement that the colleges want. Who am I? How do I see the world? How do I see myself in the world? And you're going to write so many itinerations of that you just want to spend like the entire first semester of 12th grade working on that personal statement. And then the second semester of 12th grade, you can go back and do another amazing paper. Okay. All right. So that's basically what the portfolio is. What distinguishes it from the transcript is the act of putting it together into one document, getting it printed, making all those copies, and sending it to each college. Is sending it to the college. You did the work. Here, college. Here's the work. We showed what my child did. Where the transcript differs is that you've still done all this work, but now you're taking it and you're sending it to an oversight agency, an accreditation agency, an individual who is licensed to evaluate your homeschool portfolio. And then they, for you, will turn it into that cookie cutter transcript. And they will deal with the college. You won't have to deal. They'll be that intermediary to assure the college that you did what you were supposed to do. And so that will free you from that. But that's the only way that an accredited transcript is different from a portfolio, is that once you've compiled and kept track of the work your child has done, you can now hand it off to someone else who will take it from there and present it to the college. That is the only real difference between the two. For me personally, after doing the portfolio approach for child 1 and the transcript approach for child 2, if I had to do it over again, I would have just stuck with the portfolio approach, because my child's college acceptance at all 4 colleges and her scholarships had nothing to do with the transcript process that I paid $400 for. And at the end of the day, the person that did her transcript turned out to be just like a miserable person, and now her name's on my daughter's high school diploma, and that makes me a little sad. But it's neither here or there. So reasons to do the portfolio. It's unique. It shows off your child as an individual. It shows off their talents. They really are widely accepted by most colleges at this point in time. Homeschooling has been a thing at this point for 30 years. A lot of colleges have gotten over themselves, and they will accept and review the homeschool portfolio. At the end of the day, they're looking at the test scores before they look at anything else. And if they like the test scores, they will then look at the portfolio. Okay. The portfolio allows for non-traditional homeschool approaches. Cons. You have to be really organized to get this done. People who aren't organized tend to pay me to get this done. I'm fine with that. But if I can help you get it together and get organized, I'd like that. It's intimidating, but what isn't? Some colleges will still want you to reformat it into their cookie cutter way, so there's a little bit more work. The pros for doing the transcript is it's just easier for colleges. And then you can hand that communication with the colleges off to someone else, and you're not like mommy principal at that point. And so you're not feeling demeaned because someone else is, because they'll make you feel a little demeaned, in all honesty. But someone is taking that job. But it takes the uniqueness out of your child's application. Yeah. So let's talk about why this is also important to public school and traditional school students. What has been happening this last year is that I've been working also with non-homeschoolers, public school and private school students, to help them get into colleges. Because what happened is last year, SATs got canceled. And so now kids no longer had that test score to help them stand out. And so what I've been doing is I've been taking some of the things that I do in creating the portfolio for homeschoolers and applying it to public school students. I have had them write different types of essays for me. I've looked through their schoolwork and looked for some, show me the writing you're most proud of. And I've pulled out a few papers that they were proud of and packaged that and a resume, whether it be a talent resume or a work resume or an internship resume or an award and activity resume. And I've packaged those together. And just whatever was special about the child. I made a document of about 10 pages. And when we sent out the application, we wrote addendum coming in the mail, or we'd ask them for a way to upload the addendum. And we would also send them that addendum. So what's starting to happen, and a lot of college coaches, people who help kids get into college, a lot of coaches are starting to create portfolios for public school students. If anybody wants to know more about portfolios for public school students, that won't be alive because I don't know if I can talk for 90 minutes, but I can make a separate video on that. And so I've been using what I know about writing portfolios for homeschool students, and I've been starting to write them for public school students. And it's a service I provide. I think my prices are fair. And actually, I compared it to what other people cost. My prices are super fair. And if anybody wants that service, just leave a comment and we'll link up and have a talk about that. So there was something else I wanted to talk about. At the end of the day, as homeschoolers, your education is super unique to you. 70% of what you've done can be compared to what other people have done. And that's important because it helps colleges know that you've had enough traditional curriculum to be able to hang with the college students. On the other hand, that other 30% is going to be so unique to you and so personal. And you really want to use the portfolio to emphasize how your journey has been different. Did you experience science and social studies out in the world? Did you travel? Did you go to every science museum on the face of God's green earth? Did you take a documentary approach to history? Um, and then write about what you've learned and make comparisons. Um, were you self-motivated? Did you do some independent study? Um, did you now have time to be a stage actor and paid? Did you end up having an internship that paid you while you were in high school? These are the kinds of things that get their own page in your portfolio. Okay, and these are the things that make you stand out. Make sure that your homeschool portfolio has a table of contents and is organized in a way that they can look at your table of contents. It's got to be front and center. Table of contents should be first. And it should show through the clear plastic page in that portfolio so that they see name, homeschool portfolio, and then table of contents. So they're like, oh, arts, flip to the arts page. Oh, history, flip to the history page. Math, let me see. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to look at every page, but they're going to look at what each school thinks is important. So a portfolio is almost becomes cookie cutter because now each school can take the information that they need from it and judge your child accordingly. So that is my talk on homeschool portfolios versus homeschool accredited transcripts. Net and net of it is they both work well, but you're still doing all the compiling of information. If you do the accredited diploma, you've just removed yourself from dealing directly with the college. It didn't do anything special for me. It didn't serve me in any way. And honestly, my daughter and I are a little sour over the person we use. And it was the person that everyone in our county kind of uses. I personally am working on moving towards my master's and my doctorate degree in educational leadership. This is a new thing that I've decided to do. In the course of working for getting the master's, I am also working on getting my accreditation license, where I can look at someone's portfolio and tell them if they're on the right path, if they've done what they need to do. I mean, I can do that now. I have no problem doing that now. I'm very versed, I'm very knowledgeable. But the difference between me getting the accreditation certificate means that now the portfolios that I write or the oversight that I give is equal to a public school principal. So it's going to take a couple of years. I'm not in a hurry because the services I provide and the oversight I provide and the advice that I give doesn't change. It's just how the colleges look at me will change. And honestly, in my area, a lot of people don't want the accreditation on the diplomas because the more people that turn in accredited diplomas, if all homeschoolers moved toward and started having oversight on their diplomas, what would happen is that colleges would start rejecting their portfolios. So we don't really want that to happen. I'm really starting to feel that second COVID shot, that I got yesterday, y'all. We don't want schools to start saying, well, everyone else gave me an accredited diploma or accredited transcript. I want you to give me an accredited transcript too. By law, they're not allowed to do it. But we all know people will try us. So I'm trying to think of a really good reason why you would want to go get your diploma accredited anyway. I know people want it for the scholarship reason. For my daughter, it wasn't necessary. But if you're trying to get a scholarship based on GPA and not based on talent, accreditation might be necessary. That's why I did it. Because, that's what I wanted to add. In my state of Georgia, there's such thing called the Hope Scholarship. And so if you have a 3.0 or higher, you automatically get the Hope Scholarship in 9th grade. And it covers a state tuition. And so that's a reason to have someone give you accreditation oversight over your diploma. In my case, my daughter did receive the Hope, but it didn't matter because she already got a full scholarship. And so what the school did was they lowered her talent scholarship and took the Hope money. It didn't pay for any extras. It didn't kick any money back to her. It didn't change anything for us financially. But if you want someone basically to, you're accrediting the GPA more than you're accrediting their ability and the work that they've done, if you want to accredit. So like I said, that's something that I'm working toward. I don't 100% agree with it, but based on what you want in your future, I know that there are some families who won't move forward without it. I'm going to offer my students in my personal homeschool program the ability to get accreditation approach or non-accreditation approach at that point when I have the licensing. And I'm guessing that only 10% of my students will take it. But because I work with so many people who are not my students, not my week-to-week homeschool co-op students, I want to make sure that I have that for them. And there will be kids who want Ivy League and things of that nature. And because there are homeschool program schools that have cut corners, I want to make sure that mine is up and up. A1, the best out there. And having that accreditation will help and go a long way. So I haven't done this for my last 2 videos. I think I'm going to do this for all 3 videos. This week is go through them and timestamp them so you can pull out pertinent information you need. Make sure you have all the links to other videos I've done and blogs I've written and documents that will help you understand this topic better. And I will get that done for you so that if you coming to this video late, or if you're just catching the end of this video, you can still have access to all the information you need. I'm done. I'm going to get some hot tea and I'm going to go to my bed because the effects of my second COVID shot are settling in. And I think I want to go ahead and sleep through this bad feeling. If you have any questions and you've missed this live stream, you can still view the video after the live stream and put your comments in then. If you put in a comment in now in this, as I'm shutting it down, I may or may not be able to access the comment or question. So please like and subscribe, and then check out some of my other videos. And if at that point, you don't like what I do, then unsubscribe. But subscribe so you can keep track and go through some of the other information. I've been putting homeschool information on YouTube since 2007. That's a long time. I look back at some of the stuff in the first 5 years, and I don't agree with the things I wrote then. So take that with a grain of salt. But anything I've written in the last 3 or 4 years after I homeschooled, graduated my kids, and then started helping other kids and looking at homeschooling a little bit more objectively, any work I've done in this area in the last 3 years, I'm very proud of. So thank you so much. Please consider subscribing. I have a decently high viewership, but I am not accredited yet. I expect it to be not accredited. Gosh, I'm so tired. I am not monetized yet. I expect it to be monetized by the end of April. And I think it'll happen this week. But if you can send me a little extra love to help that get done, that would be helpful. So thanks a bunch. Take care. Be safe. Don't freak out about getting your kids' homeschool work compiled into a portfolio. And I'll see you next time.